Hey guys, welcome back to the Food Lab. As you can see, it's cold out, the leaves have fallen, and it's time for some comfort food. Today I've got one of my favorite beef comfort food dishes. I'm taking a beautiful chuck roast and I'm braising it in beer, a pumpkin wheat ale to be exact. And I'm pairing that with a delicious and authentic handmade gnocchi, which I'm going to show you how to make from scratch, of course. And it's a great way to stretch your dollar if you spent the last couple of weeks stocking up on batteries and flashlights and preparing for a epic hurricane. So I hope you enjoy, share it with your friends, you're going to love it. It's a great way to mix up your Thanksgiving if you're tired of the same old. And as always, I'll see you in the kitchen. Braising a chuck roast starts with tying it off in a standard butcher's knot, which I'm going to show you now. If you didn't tie it at the end of the day when you tried to pull it out of the Dutch oven, it would just fall apart and you wouldn't be able to serve it very well. So the first step I have is to take about 4.5 to 5 feet of butcher's twine here. I like to start on the skinny end. Basically on one end you're going to start by tying it off, just a regular square knot there. You don't want to tie it too tight because it would just cut through the meat, but you don't want to tie it too loose. So I'm going to take it down about 1.5 inches, turn it, pull it to the side, bring it around the bottom, up and through, and then loop it through there, and repeat that step about 4 or 5 times. And each time that you do this, and this is why I start on the narrow end, you're going to want to pull it tight and then recenter it. So again, come down about 1.5 inches, pull underneath, come back under, loop it through, and pull it tight. I think this is going to be the last time. And then what I like to do is tie it once, long ways, but not too tight. Then bring it around to the top, connect it with the first loop you made, and square that one off with another knot. And that's how you tie a roast. So after you've tied your beef, the next step is to sear it. Searing is very important to the end result because you're adding a lot of flavor. Caramelization is very important when you have so much meat and you're going to be cooking it for a long time in a lot of different flavors. Just giving it a little bit of a kickstart. In addition to that kickstart, you want to season everything that you cook. So I'm going to oil this Dutch oven, which I have about medium-high here. Make sure you season your roast generously. Plenty of kosher salt and freshly ground pepper. Okay, now carefully this goes into the pan. Give it a sear. Season the other side. That smells great. Now you want to sear all 4 sides of this. So there's 6 really, but I'm only going to touch the top and the bottom. You'll see what I mean in a minute. The next step is to add vegetables. I've got the meat seared, pulled it out. I'm going to start with the onions. I've lowered this to about a medium heat. I'm going to add my onions. Alright, once I've got my onions going a bit, in goes the garlic. Got about, so many cloves of garlic going on there. About six carrots, roll cut, so they're about 1.5 inch pieces there. They'll go in as well. So, I've got a few different types of beer here. I'm using just to be seasonally appropriate. I have a pumpkin wheat from Shock Top, Trogues Perpetual IPA for some hoppy, fresh bitterness there. And what I'm going to do is add just a splash of each to get these vegetables going here. but I'm not going to use all of it. So I'm going to leave that for about 3 to 5 minutes and let those vegetables cook just a bit. So I've let my vegetables cook just a little bit more. I've actually transferred everything into a more size-appropriate Dutch oven. This one's an oval. So I'm going to take my meat here and place each one into this Dutch oven. Thusly. Don't waste that. Don't waste that. Now, I'm going to take all this beer, and I'm going to pour it in here. I only want to cover about half the meat, so that's about appropriate. So to offset the bitterness of the beer, I'm going to add a little bit of balsamic vinegar for acidity and sweetness, just sort of balance everything out. Okay, about an ounce or two. Bunch of salt. Season all the beer we just added. Pepper as well. Okay. And I'm going to take 2 sprigs of rosemary, just sort of mess them up there and stick them right on top. And a few sprigs of fresh thyme as well. Alright. Now I'm going to bring all of this to a boil, so set it on high. Bring it to a boil, bring it back to a simmer, and then let it simmer until the meat is fork tender. That's going to take about 3 hours, so that's about it. Alright, so I'm going to bring that up to a boil. So I've got these potatoes boiled with the skin on and whole. If you think you're saving time by cutting them up and peeling them, you're actually damaging the starch of the potato, and it's not going to really make a great finished product. So boil them whole with the skin on. Work with them while they're still hot. But the best way to peel them is with a paring knife in one hand and a potato in the other. I would just sort of get the skin off quickly. Don't burn yourself. So once your potato is completely peeled, I'm going to use this nifty ricer here. If you don't have a ricer, don't use a masher. Go out and buy a ricer. Basically, you want to squish it in there and get it in this big receiving dish here. That's going to be big enough where I can spread the potatoes out and they can sort of cool down a little bit, because I'm going to be kneading them with my hands, and it will be very unpleasant if they're really hot. So, in a minute, I'll show you how to make the gnocchi dough. After you've cooked your potatoes, you need to make your gnocchi dough. Start by mounding your rice potatoes on your work area. Make a hole in the center, much like a volcano, and add your eggs. Beat the eggs a bit and start to mix the potatoes into the eggs. Use all-purpose flour, about 1/4 cup per potato, and gently using your fingers mix everything together, keeping it all in one pile on the counter. And when it starts to come together, knead the dough by folding and pressing it in on itself. Do this until your dough is a smooth ball. Don't overdo the flour, and don't overdo the kneading. Let this ball rest for about 20 minutes so the flour can absorb the moisture from the potatoes. When your dough's done resting, cut off 3 to 4 ounce chunks, and roll them into smooth, evenly thick ropes using your palms. Cut the rope into little diamond-shaped thingies, using a straight edge, like a dough cutter, or a bench scraper, or a spatula. Using the back of a clean fork, roll each gnocchi off of the tines to create the grooves on the outside and a little pocket on the inside. Using the side of your thumb, press the gnocchi against the fork and then gently roll it off of the fork. Place them in a floured sheet pan for them to rest again. After 20 minutes of resting, and you've boiled a pot of water, and you've made an ice bath, and both of which you've seasoned generously, you gently drop the gnocchi a few at a time, being careful not to crowd the pot into the boiling water. You'll know the gnocchi are done when they float, But don't walk away, because this happens pretty quickly. Transfer them to the ice bath to stop the cooking, and then toss them in some oil until you're ready to saute them in your sauce. Here's a great little side dish that goes with just about everything. Asparagus can be so simple to cook, and it can yield incredible results. I'm going to keep it really simple today with a very simple broil. I have the asparagus, 3 bunches of it laid out into these pans here. I'm going to take a knife and evenly distribute some soft butter over this asparagus. I have my oven preset to 400 back there. So nice high heat to get some color on the asparagus. Now after your butter, I've got some garlic that I've sliced very, very thin here. I'm going to add that to the mix. Obviously very important, some salt and pepper, kosher salt. Freshly ground pepper. And I have some fresh Parmigiano Reggiano here that I'm going to, just about that big. A little olive oil. Butter, cheese, salt, pepper, olive oil. And then this goes into a preheated 400-degree oven. Alright, and that won't be in there for more than 10 minutes. Okay, so I have had my gnocchi resting here. I've used a bit of olive oil to keep them from sticking to each other, but I keep my dressing very simple. Got some butter in here that I'm browning. Next step is to add my gnocchi. I'm only going to do a little bit at a time. I don't want to crowd the pan. To this I'm adding some chopped garlic and some Parmigiano Reggiano cheese, freshly grated of course. And then a couple of leaves of rosemary. And of course some salt and pepper. Make sure you taste your gnocchi for seasoning, and once it's cooked, once it's heated through, I give it another couple of tosses. And voila. Gnocchi and rosemary brown butter. So we're ready to assemble the plate. I have my 3 main elements here, the gnocchi, the asparagus, the beef. I pulled the beef out, I let the sauce reduce in the Dutch oven for a while. Now it's a little bit thicker. So I'm going to start with this gnocchi, which I showed you how to saute in the brown butter, garlic, cheese, and salt and pepper. So I'm going to start with that on the plate. This asparagus I pulled out of the oven after about 10 minutes. It's like perfectly cooked, and I'm just going to finish it with a little bit of fresh lemon juice here. This is a tip from Chef Charlie. Alright, so some of this asparagus right here. And then this beef. So that just falls apart there. Nice piece of braised beef on a day like this is perfect. Okay. And then a couple of these carrots. Of course you want to finish that with some fresh Parmesan. Some sauce. Some of this heavenly beer gravy. What could be better?